A little while ago, had a chance to visit with Lane Kiffin, head coach at Ole Miss. We talked a little bit about thoughts for the season. Didn't talk specifically about name, image, and likeness, some specific players, and a lot of other things. So this is our conversation just a little while ago with Ole Miss head football coach Lane Kiffin.
Good to see you, man. How are you? Good off season?
Yeah, it's been good. Ready to get back to work here and live recruiting coming on here next week, which is a newer challenge, that we're not used to over the years of having. So we're excited, and then obviously to get to camp from there.
It almost feels strange when June 1st rolled around after, 15 months or so of no in-person contact, and now it's like you're just drinking out of a fire hose? Yeah,
it was. It was like a mad rush because obviously kids got to kind of catch up, from figuring out what to do. And, over the course of time, the visits they would have done over months, they're trying to get in 1 week. We had a number of kids come to us that, we're doing 2-3 schools a day.
What's the reception from guys that are visiting with you and your staff and being on campus for the first time after year one but not having had interaction with you?
I think that's been, very strange. Obviously just having signees that were Zooming us, and now they're there. And then with the recruits, similar too. We've been selling this, and now all of a sudden, they're there as well. That's obviously a little easier because, we're still figuring them out. But in recruiting, it's two ways. You want to be able to learn the kids too and learn the families, and we weren't really able to do that.
What do you like most about your job, about being a football coach? What's the best part?
Seeing players develop. I would have said, before it was more, just seeing them get to the NFL and, how much money can they make and help their families and those things. So it's still a big part of that. But just seeing them develop in general, riding over here with, Matt Corral and just seeing his maturity in 1 year, develop off the field and his leadership, is really neat to see kids develop on and off the field.
How has Matt grown? There were some interesting quotes in the story that Dennis Dodds wrote at CBS where he was kind of talking about his teammates looking to him. And so how have you seen him grow?
I think, he went into last year. We didn't have a spring. He didn't even know if he's going to be the starting quarterback. So, everybody says the quarterback should be the leader. Well, it's hard to be the leader until you're the guy. And then he had some good games and he had some really bad games. So, again, and it's also hard to be a leader if you're not performing well, like what happened at times. So I just think he's really embraced leadership. I think he is a natural leader. So some of these kids you got to force into being leaders. I think it's natural with him.
People talk about offensive systems all the time, regardless of air raid or triple option or anything in between. Do you have a system, or do you take a different approach where you look at personnel and say, we're going to figure it out based on what we think will work?
I think we're unique, in the ability to do almost everything. Just been fortunate to be around so many systems and have changed so many times where I think, when recruits come to most offensive coaches, say, this is what you're going to get. Here's the system. Where do you fit in it? Or do you like it? With us, we can, we're not trying to sound arrogant. We've just done a lot of different things. Most people have always been fast, or they've always been pro style, or they've always been spread, or they've always been under center. We've basically done everything at some point over time. So I think, we have the ability to fit to our personnel.
So much conversation about Matt Corral coming into this season because of the numbers he put in, but I feel like it kind of gets lost that you guys led the SEC in rushing a year ago. Do you feel that way, and how does that factor in?
I've always felt, for whatever reason, wherever we've been at, whether it's because me and people just, I don't know why, they just assume we throw the ball. I've always felt the rushing stats have been lost at different places that we've been, whether that's been Alabama. I don't know if it's changed since, but I think the last year at Alabama, or the Derrick Henry year at Alabama, I think is the most rushing yards ever by a Nick Saban team ever. And people just say, oh, well, all he does is throw the ball. And there's another stat, leading the SEC in rushing. I bet you, not just fans, I bet you a lot of coaches may not even guess that if you gave them that question.
So when you talk about the running back room, obviously there's Jerrion Ealy and Snoop Connor. Parrish kind of bursts onto the scene. What do you do with all those guys to spread carries and to use them and kind of use their different skill sets?
Well, it's a great problem to have. And, they're very different guys, as you talked about, with their skill set. So that's why it's exciting to get to work and have a spring under us this year where we know the kids enough to be able to say, okay, hey, they know the basics of this. Now we can look at them playing slot receiver or running jet sweeps with them or whatever, where last year was hard to do that because we were still just figuring out the basics with them.
Two things, an obligatory John Rice Plumlee question. Just the ability to get him the ball, is that kind of the way you approach it and figure out how he can best help the offense?
That's another good problem to have. And it's great that he's, willing to do whatever it is that's best for the team. And so we're going to have to figure that out, where exactly that is with him, and, still keep some quarterback stuff alive for him as well.
And then last thing, tell me what it's like to catch a blue marlin.
It is really cool. And I figured it would be, and I'd heard the stories. It's kind of one of those things till you do it. People tell you, and you're like, it's a long time to sit on a boat. It was the third day. Now we caught a lot of other fish in the meantime, but third day till we caught one. It was really cool.
Is that the most challenging fish you've ever caught?
Yeah, by far. I felt like it was, and I'm not a hunter, but like in rare animal in Africa or something that you got to go hunt down and find and takes days to find. That's what it felt like.
Good to see you. Thanks for your time.
All right, you got it. Thank you.
That was Lane Kiffin earlier today with us here at SEC Media Days. Called a blue marlin. Said he had always wanted to. First time he's actually pulled that off. Porky, you're a fisherman. You love the offshore fishing. If you're a guy that likes to fish, that's kind of a bucket list thing.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. And the picture's incredible. And with all due respect to Coach, it's not exactly the biggest blue marlin in the ocean.
Which he said. I asked him, I was like, you in fishing? He's like, yeah, I caught a blue marlin. I was like, really? How big? He's like, yeah, it wasn't that big.
But still, I mean, I've been out like that once, and spending a full day looking around and not seeing land for an entire 24 hours is a bit of a unique experience.
Little unsettling, yeah. Anything that Lane Kiffin said that stood out for you guys?
I believe coaches when they say this, and this is of all the coach speaking things in the world, I do believe that the development of their players is the best part of coaching them. I think they really do. I think because there's a challenge in it too of taking that piece of clay and turning it into somebody that is an elite football player. When he talks about that, coaches say whatever they want to say. I believe that.
I really, sometimes you ask a question expecting to get one answer and you get something different. Mm-hmm. I really thought he was going to talk about enjoying kind of the schematic thing of it, like trying to figure out how to outfox the other guy, but it's not the way that he went at all.
No.
Borky, one of the things that stood out to me was him talking about their ability to adapt, and he said he thinks that they're unique in that. You've got so many systems. Mike Leach, right down the road, an example, and there's no right way to do it, right? You do it one way or another, and Mike Leach's deal is this is the system, fit in it. If you're square, you got to get into a round hole, or you can go somewhere else. And Lane Kiffin assembles the parts and the pieces, and he looks around and he goes, yeah, what's going to work? And he's been able to make that work every single place he has been a coach.
Yeah, and on a week-by-week basis. Something also he brought up, and we've talked about this a good bit. It's not surprising, but he did specifically reference Jerrion Ealy. And, we talked about what are they going to do without Elijah Moore. Matt Corral earlier today on the SEC Network said, you don't replace Elijah Moore. Now, I think our room's loaded, but you don't replace Elijah Moore. But Kiffin mentioned Ealy specifically and talked about his flexibility as an athlete, a running back. And it goes back to what we've talked about often. A very similar comparison to what they're able to do between him and Alvin Kamara. And Kiffin referenced that. He said, we're going to be flexible with him. They're going to move him around a lot more than you're used to, I think. And he referenced that earlier today and talked about offensive flexibility, talking about him.
Ealy, Plumlee. Parrish, is he a guy who can do some multiple things? They got a lot of guys that they're going to line up at different places. It makes them dangerous.
Well, we were talking with Cole earlier, and he talked about the fact they've got some receivers that have caught a bunch of footballs in different places. I mean, Dontario Drummond is in that mix. Mingo is in that mix, and others. It's going to take people stepping up, but most people seem to be pretty bullish on this Ole Miss offense. We are now 48 days until the Rebels open their season against